Many people assume Red Planet was just another forgettable sci-fi flop. The truth is messier and far more interesting. Directed by Anthony Hoffman and starring Val Kilmer, Carrie-Anne Moss, Tom Sizemore, Terence Stamp, Benjamin Bratt, and Simon Baker.
I don't see anything. No food, no air, no water.
This $80 million Warner Brothers production crash landed at the box office in November 2000 and took several careers down with it. Today we're counting down 15 facts about Red Planet. Stick around for number 1 because what happened between the two leads on set makes the killer robot on screen look tame. 1. The director spent months living at NASA. Before a single frame was shot, director Anthony Hoffman made a decision most big-budget filmmakers skip entirely. He spent months doing research at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Not a quick tour, and not a phone consultation. Months of immersive study into how actual space missions are designed, planned, and executed. The airbag landing system was pulled directly from NASA's Mars Pathfinder mission, which had demonstrated the same technique in 1997. The spacecraft interiors were modeled on real mission architecture. The zero-gravity fire sequence was praised by scientists for depicting flame behavior more accurately than almost any film before it. For a movie that got destroyed by critics, Red Planet did its homework with a rigor most serious science fiction films never bother with. Hoffman cared deeply about getting it right. The audience just didn't show up to notice. 2. Mars was actually Australia, and Jordan Red Planet never went anywhere near Mars. The production filmed across 2 very different landscapes on opposite sides of the world. The desolate surface scenes were shot in Coober Pedy and the Breakaways Reserve in South Australia, a stretch of outback so alien in appearance that filmmakers have used it as a stand-in for hostile worlds for decades. The canyon sequences were filmed in Wadi Rum, Jordan, a vast desert valley several miles long carved by ancient geology into shapes that no studio set could replicate. Wadi Rum would later become the go-to location for big-budget sci-fi, used in Dune, The Martian, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Red Planet was among the first major productions to recognize what the landscape could offer. The film found 2 real places on Earth that looked genuinely alien. Getting audiences to believe them was the easier part of the job. 3. Carrie-Anne Moss came straight off The Matrix. When Red Planet went into production in August 1999, Carrie-Anne Moss was still riding the shockwave of The Matrix, released just months earlier. Studios were watching her closely. Warner Brothers, the same studio behind both films, knew exactly what they were getting when they cast her as Commander Kate Bowman. Her character's name was a deliberate nod to Dave Bowman from 2001, A Space Odyssey, a detail the filmmakers built in as a quiet tribute to classic science fiction. Moss delivered a composed, commanding performance, mostly isolated in orbit while the rest of the cast was stranded on the surface. She carried the film's emotional anchor from a spacecraft set largely alone for much of the shoot. Critics who dismissed the film rarely had anything bad to say about her. She was the one thing that held together cleanly. The movie failed around her, not because of her. 4. The film predicted real technology over 20 years early. Red Planet's reputation as a dumb popcorn movie misses something important. The film depicted a robotic helicopter flying on Mars, a small, unmanned aerial vehicle scouting the terrain from above. In 2000, that looked like science fiction shorthand. In April 2021, NASA's Ingenuity helicopter became the first aircraft to fly on another planet. The film also featured Amy, an autonomous military-grade robot capable of independent navigation and threat response. That, too, looked far-fetched in 2000. Today, Boston Dynamics and other robotics companies build machines that move and operate in almost exactly the same way and have publicly pledged not to weaponize them, which brings limited comfort. A movie dismissed as scientifically lazy was quietly 2 decades ahead of the technology it imagined. The audience that laughed at it in 2000 has since watched those predictions arrive, one by one, in the real world. 5. The commander's name was a hidden tribute. Commander Kate Bowman's surname wasn't chosen at random. The screenwriters named her as a direct reference to David Bowman, the astronaut at the center of 2001, A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick's landmark 1968 film about a mission that goes catastrophically wrong in deep space. A quiet piece of intertextual respect, embedded in the script for anyone paying attention. The character herself was written to carry the same unflappable authority that made Bowman compelling in Kubrick's film, a commander who keeps functioning while everything around her falls apart. Carrie-Anne Moss played it exactly that way. Whether audiences caught the reference depended entirely on how much classic science fiction they carried in their heads. Most didn't. But the filmmakers put it there anyway as a small signal to the genre's history, hidden inside a film that critics spent most of their energy dismissing. 6. An exercise machine started a war. Val Kilmer and Tom Sizemore arrived on set as friends. They left as something considerably different. The falling out began when Kilmer discovered the production had paid to ship Sizemore's elliptical exercise machine from England to Australia. The cost wasn't the issue. The principle was Kilmer reportedly told Sizemore directly that he was earning $10 million on the film and Sizemore was earning $2 million, framing the exercise machine as an absurd luxury for someone at his pay grade. Sizemore responded by throwing a 50-pound weight at Kilmer. From that point, the production fractured. Neither man would come to set if the other was present. Scenes involving both actors were filmed using body doubles positioned over the shoulder. A movie about a crew that had to cooperate to survive was being made by 2 lead actors who refused to be in the same room. 7. Kilmer refused to say his co-star's name. After the exercise machine incident, the feud escalated well past unprofessional into something almost theatrical. Kilmer stopped saying Sizemore's character's name on set entirely. In scenes where the script called for him to address Birchinall directly, Kilmer reportedly replaced the name with "Hey, you," every time. The production had to work around 2 lead actors who communicated through body doubles, refused to share a set, and had reduced their professional relationship to open contempt. The producers eventually intervened specifically about the physical confrontation everyone could see coming. One of them asked Sizemore not to hit Kilmer in the face when it finally happened. Sizemore cooperated. He punched Kilmer in the chest instead, hard enough to knock him down. After filming wrapped, Sizemore filed a restraining order against Kilmer. They have since reconciled. 8. The film killed its director's career. Before it opened, Red Planet was the first and only feature film Anthony Hoffman ever directed, not because he chose to step away, because the film's catastrophic reception made it nearly impossible to come back. Hoffman was a South African director who had built a reputation in commercials before Warner Brothers handed him an $80 million production for his feature debut. The scale was enormous for a first film. The pressure that came with it was matched only by the punishment the film received on release. Critics savaged it. Audiences ignored it. The studio absorbed the loss and moved on. Hoffman did not get another feature. One of the more quietly tragic stories in the film's history is that the director who spent months at NASA, who fought for scientific accuracy, who cared genuinely about the material, never got another chance to make a movie. Red Planet was his entire theatrical career. 9. It opened behind Meet the Parents. Red Planet arrived in theaters on November 10, 2000, carrying an $80 million budget and a cast of recognizable names. It opened at number 5 at the North American box office. Not number 1, not number 2, number 5. Behind Charlie's Angels, Little Nicky, Men of Honor, and Meet the Parents. A film about humanity's desperate attempt to survive on another planet lost its opening weekend to a Ben Stiller comedy about meeting a girlfriend's father. The opening weekend gross came in at $8.7 million, a number that made the eventual worldwide total of $33.5 million feel almost optimistic by comparison. The film had lost roughly half its production budget before anyone outside the studio had seen the final numbers. One trade publication later described it as one of several expensive failures that accelerated the end of Val Kilmer's status as a bankable movie star. Meet the Parents grossed over $100 million. Mars Lost to a Dinner Table, 10, Mission to Mars came out first and poisoned. The well-read Planet didn't just fail on its own merits. It failed in the aftermath of another Mars film that had already soured audiences 8 months earlier. Mission to Mars, directed by Brian De Palma, opened in March 2000 to brutal reviews and weak box office. By the time Red Planet arrived in November, the year's appetite for Mars-set science fiction had been thoroughly exhausted. 2 films, same planet, same year, both losing money. Critics and audiences had already made their decision about what a Mars movie in 2000 was worth. Red Planet walked into a room that the other film had already emptied. The 2 productions had nothing to do with each other creatively. Different studios, different tones, different approaches, but they shared a subject and a release year, and that was enough. Hollywood quietly shelved Mars as a viable setting for big-budget science fiction. It would take 15 years and Ridley Scott's The Martian to rehabilitate the concept. 11. Terence Stamp was written out early by design. Terence Stamp was cast as Dr. Bud Chantilas, the crew's aging philosophical scientist, the character who frames the film's larger questions about faith, purpose, and what humanity owes the universe. He was also the first crew member to die. That wasn't an accident. The script positioned Chantilas as the moral soul of the mission, then killed him off early in the Mars sequence to leave the surviving crew without their philosophical compass. Stamp played it with the kind of quiet authority that makes a character's absence felt for the rest of the film. Critics who dismissed the movie frequently noted that things got emptier after Stamp left the screen. He brought something to the role that the screenplay couldn't fully contain and the direction couldn't quite replace. A film that struggled to give its characters depth gave its deepest character the shortest runway. Stamp walked off the set while the movie still had half its running time left. 12. The film was ahead of its Rotten Tomatoes score. Red Planet sits at 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. That number has followed the film for over 2 decades and shaped how most people think about it or choose not to think about it at all. But the film has accumulated a quiet, persistent group of defenders who argue the score buried something genuinely worthwhile. The production design was nominated for awards. The scientific accuracy of specific sequences drew genuine praise from people with the credentials to evaluate it. The zero-gravity fire behavior, the airbag landing system, the robotic helicopter, all of it reflected real research. The Martian landscapes were striking. Carrie-Anne Moss delivered a performance that most critics acknowledged was better than the material around her. A 14% score tells you the film failed as a commercial entertainment product. It doesn't tell you that the people who made it were careless. They weren't. They just made a bad movie very seriously. 13. The robot was designed to move like a living thing. AME, Autonomous Mapping Evaluation and Evasion, was the film's most technically ambitious creation. The visual effects team at Cinesight built her to move with the fluid, unpredictable grace of a large predatory animal rather than the rigid mechanics of a traditional screen robot. Every joint was designed for a full range of motion. The way she repositioned her body, changed direction, and tracked targets was modeled more on feline movement than on industrial machinery. When AME switches from support mode to military kill mode midway through the film, the animation shift was deliberate, a change in posture and movement rhythm intended to signal a fundamental change in intent before any dialogue confirmed it. For a film otherwise criticized for shallow characterization, AME had more personality than several of the human cast members. She was also the element that aged best. The robot that seemed over the top in 2000 looks considerably less fictional today. 14. The film predicted the death of Mars movies, then proved it. Red Planet didn't just fail at the box office, it closed a door. After 2 expensive Mars films bombed within 8 months of each other in 2000, Hollywood effectively pulled the planet off the table as a setting for serious science fiction. No major studio greenlit a Mars-centered blockbuster for the next 15 years. The genre that had briefly seemed like the natural successor to the space adventure films of the 1980s and 1990s was quietly declared commercially toxic. Ghosts of Mars, John Carpenter's project already in production, arrived in 2001 and also failed. James Cameron had been talking publicly about a Mars film for years. It never materialized. The window closed fast and stayed closed until Ridley Scott's The Martian in 2015 finally proved the subject could work on screen. Red Planet didn't just predict what would happen to Mars movies, it helped cause it. 15. The Feud outlasted the film. Most on-set conflicts dissolve when production wraps. The Kilmer-Sizemore feud did not. After months of body doubles, refused eye contact, a physical confrontation that required a producer to specify which part of Kilmer's body Sizemore was allowed to hit, and the general daily misery of a shoot where two lead actors would not share a set, Tom Sizemore filed a restraining order against Val Kilmer after filming ended. The film that was supposed to launch careers and recoup $80 million instead became a footnote in both men's stories. Sizemore later described Red Planet as one of his genuine career regrets, not just because it failed, but because of what happened to a friendship on the way down. Val Kilmer never returned to the kind of studio leading man status the film was supposed to reinforce. Both men are gone now. What survived is a film most people haven't seen, a production that ate itself from the inside, and a restraining order filed after the credits rolled. Mars was supposed to save humanity. It couldn't even save the cast. A film that got its science right, got its stars wrong, and paid the price for both. Which fact hit hardest? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dives into the sci-fi films that flew under the radar. Until next time.